austerity? Will it be fiscal consolidation? It has a lot of implications. And to help us discuss this with us, we have Tony Watima, who is a fiscal economist, who will be taking us through this. But before that, we also have other lots of discussion items lined up. Top of the list, obviously, is yesterday's inflation numbers for July came in, and it was up almost 57 basis points. Headline inflation came in at about 6.27%, up from 5.7% last month. And this has a lot of implications, as we discussed yesterday briefly on the Monetary Policy Committee meeting, the next meeting, which is yet to be set. But certainly this big jump has a lot of implications on a number of other issues. And from our reading, it's all about the fuel price adjustments that were baked into this month's inflation. How far can it go? We'll also discuss that. But also something else we're following is the Kenya shillings paired some gains, actually clawed back some losses against the US dollar today in the market. We saw the central bank coming in to sell foreign currency, especially the USD. We just don't know how much quantum they've been selling, but they've been selling foreign currency today. We are aware of that. We will find out more how much was sold and come back to you. Apart from selling the foreign currency, the central bank also was mopping up liquidity, and they were seeking to mop up about 15 billion Kenyan shillings via repo, 7-day repo. Let's see how much that will have an impact. Actually, the currency immediately rebounded. We saw it trading at about 1.3.6 against the US dollar. Yesterday, we were talking about 104.25. Something else we're also following is the fact that the fiscal revenue targets are very weak. The fiscal trajectory is very weak. And we as you said, we want to be discussing things at length, but just to get some of the feedback from this, Mbithe, who's my co-host, is sitting here and has been following some of these developments. Mbithe, inflation, we touched a bit yesterday. Do you think it's going to have some implications on the cost of money, or do you think this is just a passing cloud?
For CBK, my understanding of how they make decisions at the MPC level, they do keep track of inflation, but then what's driving inflation is largely fuel prices and excise tax on food. So they keep tabs on that, but then they don't make decisions on the MPC based on these transitory effects on it. So I think it's something that they will certainly keep monitoring. And we're at 6.27, that will certainly go up. As long as it doesn't go above the 2.5 percentage points, about 5%, which is 7.5%, something that CBK tracks, and I'm not too worried about it. But I'm very concerned about CBK actually injecting dollars into the market and that correcting, or rather reversing temporarily, the weakness that we have been seeing from 104.25 down to 103.6. The same day that the Fed actually made a decision to cut back on their core rate, which they cut it by about 25 basis points. So I'm wondering, why is it on the day that they do this that now central bank decides to inject dollars into the market? Are they concerned about the currency? Either that, or is it that whatever happens in the US has absolutely no effect on our currency with regards to valuation? So I'm just wondering, and going back and forth, but also looking out to see what will happen today in the EU, because that is a very important market.
The Bank of
for
England
export.
is actually meeting
Bank of
today.
England is meeting today. Because what happens in England and what happens in Europe is potentially more important for us, because it is a market that we export actively to, whether it's tea, whether it's flowers, things like that. So I'm certainly looking out for that. And you mentioned something very important. You tried to link the Fed decision yesterday to central bank acting today. And I think the key link... Was it today or was it yesterday? Because the news came out today morning. So I don't know if they mopped today.
No, they were mopping.
They were injecting dollars today. Okay.
This is today's activity, actually. We just don't know the quantum of how much they've been trying to... Well, they're doing mopping up liquidity, but at the same time, they're also selling foreign currency.
That's true.
Buying Kenya shilling.
And then the other question, our market, we have been looking at the market. A couple of triggers, changes at Treasury, the market has actually ignored that. But the market, foreigners have been net sellers, largely across the blue chip companies. So I'm wondering if anything is going to happen, because whatever happens in the US certainly has an impact on asset yields in those markets, not necessarily in emerging markets, but certainly in US. So it's also something for us just to keep tabs, just to see what are the foreign sentiments, as largely for the investors who are based in North America, and what are they thinking about emerging markets, what are they thinking about Kenya specifically?
I think specifically we should expect a reversal of that outflow, because Fed essentially cutting its Fed funds targeted by 25 basis. Because remember, investors are yield hunters.
The Fed came back again and said this was a one-off. or implied it was a one-off.
Yeah.
So when it started, everybody thought this is going to happen for the next maybe 6 to 12 months. But then Powell, the chairman of the Fed, came out at the same time and he said, no, you know, this was one-off, so we're not necessarily indicating that this is a trend we're going to take.
Yeah.
So it was mixed reaction and mixed signals.
But remember that the US Fed has been struggling for a long time to hit the inflation target of 2%. I think my view is that as long as that deflationary threats are there, you're likely to see the Fed being very accommodative.
But are they independent though?
Yeah, they're very independent. I think that rate cut, I didn't see Trump in it, Trump tweeting it. I think I saw a Fed very, very concerned about deflationary environment. Well, Trump has been applying pressure, saying the Fed doesn't know what they're doing. The Fed needs to cut rates.
Yes.
I didn't see that much because I watched Powell's press conference.
Okay.
And he was very genuinely concerned about inflation. But talking about the cutting, I think essentially for me what I see is when you cut rates, I mean, the quantum doesn't matter, but it's a signal. What that means is the long-term USD rates will tend to come down. Now, what will happen is portfolios are likely to shift back to emerging markets, because then when the yields start trending down like that, then they try to substitute and go to the emerging markets where the dollar yields can be in the region of 8%, 10%. And I think we're likely to, that's what I was saying, we're likely to see a reversal based on the Fed decision. And that we'd like to see the portfolios are likely to come in.
Okay,
so maybe let's give it about 30 days if portfolios, but also there also are all micro factors domestically that could actually trigger outflows.
That's true. And how's the market looking like? Have you?
The market, it's a very slow day today, just to update our viewers. Turnover, about 30 minutes to market close turnover, just about 208 million shares. Safaricom being the top trader trading about 2.3 million shares. So it's likely generally to be a very slow day at the market. But something else you're also following is probably corporate actions coming up next week. Maybe could spur the market. Oh, by the way, Safaricom book closure is just around the corner.
Okay.
That's likely to have a downside effect on the price.
And the interim CEO has actually come out and said he wants to see how he can use M-Pesa to take it to other countries. I know they have active partnerships in Nigeria and in Ethiopia, so maybe some interesting news to look out for.
Yeah.
But then over and above that, today morning, the NSC had hosted Tuskies for the Ibuka launch program. So the NSC is actually trying to get in as many companies as they possibly can and demystify the process of listing with the objective of getting some of these companies to list. So it's one thing for them to come and say we're in Ibuka.
Good listing, because I mean we had
we need them. We need them to ring
own
a bell.
retailer that's good. So we have our own retailer, which is Chumi, which is going through so many issues.
Yes.
Well, I mean they have not even yet released their financial fiscal year 2018 results, so 2019 results, but it would be interesting to have a second retailer listing in the market.
It will
but also
be.
to spur the market. I mean, the market has been yearning for new listings. Don't you think, Be
George, I'm happy that Tuskies has joined Ibuka.
Yes.
I'd be happier if Tuskies was ringing a bell and saying, here are the shares at this price.
Yeah.
So where to go, but we need to get to a point where, okay, here are the shares, buy them now.
You don't care, I mean, even whether it's by introduction, whether they're doing an IPO.
Bring the shares. Let me have a discussion on whether I appreciate the value or not.
Yeah.
But well, again, it's certainly a step in the right direction.
But going back to the conversation around M-Pesa being our exports, we can actually comfortably say that M-Pesa is likely to be one of our leading exports. So which country, top of your mind, do you think Ethiopia could be the first country that they're exporting it to?
So Safaricom has been having talks with different partners in the way of giving management and technical assistance. And I know they do have some interesting links in Nigeria, have been looking at Ethiopia. So I don't know how they're going to factor this in, because for now they're domiciled here and they are regulated here. But one thing to consider is their affiliation with Equity Bank. If they have that fintech collaboration, then it's something that can open additional borders for them.
Yeah, and just to update our viewers, the Central Bank of Nigeria has just given a license, a mobile financial services license to MTN, which has common shareholding with Safaricom, because then Vodacom and the majority shareholders on the other side could also rate on this other side. But it could also be may not be a coincidence, but I think also it makes sense what you're saying, that could actually potentially export M-Pesa to Nigeria.
Let's see. I mean, let's see. It's open. Just keeping tabs on what's happening. But something worth looking out for.
So something also we're also following. We will update you tomorrow. Is that the Bank of England is sitting today on potential to give a rate decision. Essentially, the rate decision around setting the minimum cost of money in England, and something to watch out, because the arrival of Boris Johnson to the scene has certainly heightened the risks of a no-deal Brexit, and we've seen that being reflected in the performance of the British pound against the US dollar and the euro. Something else we'll be discussing. But we can take we take a short break, look at the commodity prices. When we come back, we talk about fiscal policy, geopolitical risk, and with us here is economist, senior economist, fiscal economist, Tony Watima, to discuss more of this with us. See you shortly.